Hello everyone! I hope you're ready for another adventure, because today Wayne continues to read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Always remember that as we go through these stories and read these amazing adventures, all you have to do is press the CC button in your YouTube link to be able to follow along with the words. I do believe that Madame Owl will be perfect for today's adventure. Now that Madame Owl has arrived, let's jump in. Chapter 11, Quidditch. As they entered November, the weather turned very cold. The mountains around the school became icy gray, and the lake had like chilled steel. Every morning the ground was covered in frost. Hagrid had seen the upstairs windows defrosting broomsticks on the Quidditch field, bundled up in a long moleskin overcoat, rabbit fur gloves, and an enormous beaverskin boots. The Quidditch season had begun. On Saturday, Harry would be playing his first match after weeks of training. Gryffindor versus Slytherin. If Gryffindor won, they'd be moved up into second place in the house championship. Hardly anyone had seen Harry play because Wood had decided that, as their secret weapon, Harry should be kept well secret. But the news that he was playing Seeker had leaked out somehow, and Harry didn't know which was worse. People telling him he'd be brilliant, or they'd be running around him underneath him holding a mattress. It was really lucky that Harry had Hermione as a friend. He didn't know how he'd even gotten through his homework without her, with all the last-minute Quidditch practice Wood was making them do. She had also lent him Quidditch Through the Ages, which turned out to be a very interesting read. Harry learned that there were 700 ways of committing a Quidditch foul, and all of them had happened during the World Cup match in 1473. That Seekers, usually the smallest and fastest players, and the most serious Quidditch accidents, seemed to happen to them. That, although people rarely died playing Quidditch, referees had been known to vanish and turn up months later in the Sahara Desert. Hermione had become a bit more relaxed about breaking rules since Harry and Ron saved her from the mountain troll, and she was much nicer for it. The day before Harry's first Quidditch match, the three of them were out in the freezing courtyard during break. She had conjoined them up a bright blue fire that could be carried around in a jam jar. They were standing with their backs to it, getting warm, when Snape crossed the yard. Harry noticed at once Snape was limping. Harry, Ron, and Hermione moved closer together to block the fire from room. They were sure it wouldn't be allowed. Unfortunately, something about their guilty faces caught Snape's eye. He limped over. He hadn't seen the fire, but he seemed to be looking for a reason to tell them off anyway. "What's that you've gotten there, Potter?" "It's Quidditch Through the Ages," Harry showed him. "Library books are not to be taken outside of school," said Snape. "Give it to me." 5 points from Gryffindor. "He's just made that rule up," Harry muttered angrily as Snape limped away. "Wonder what's wrong with his leg." "Dunno, but I hope it's really hurting him," Ron said bitterly. The Gryffindor common room was very noisy that evening. Harry and Ron and Hermione sat together next to the window. Hermione was checking Ron and Harry's charms homework for them. She would never let them copy "How would you learn?" but by asking her how to read it through, they got the answers right anyway. Harry felt restless. He wanted Quidditch Through the Ages back, to take his mind off the nerves about tomorrow. Why should he be afraid of Snape? Getting up, he told Ron and Hermione he was going to ask Snape to have it back. "Better you than me," they said together, but Harry had an idea that Snape wouldn't refuse if it were other teachers listening. He made his way down to the staff room and knocked. There was no answer. He knocked again. Nothing. Perhaps Snape had left the book in there. He was worth a try. He pushed the door ajar and peered inside, and a horrible scene met his eyes. Snape and Filch were inside alone. Snape was holding his robes above his knees. One of his legs was bloody and mangled. Filch was handing Snape's bandages. "Blasted thing," Snape says. "How are you supposed to keep your eyes on all three heads at once?" Harry tried to shut the door, but "Potter!" Snape's face twisted in a fury as he dropped his robes quickly to hide his leg. Harry gulped. "I just wondered if I could get the book back." "Get out! Out!" Harry left before Snape could make any more points from Gryffindor. He sprinted back upstairs. "Did you get it?" Ron asked as Harry joined them. "What's the matter?" In a low whisper, Harry told them what he'd seen. "You know what that means," he finished breathlessly. "He tried to get past the three-headed dog on Halloween. That's where he was going when we saw him. He's after what it's guarding, and I'd bet my broomstick he let the troll in to make a diversion." Hermione's eyes widened. No, he wouldn't, she said. I know he's not very nice, but he wouldn't try to steal something Dumbledore was keeping safe. Honestly, Hermione, you think all teachers are saints or something, snapped Ron. I'm with Harry. I wouldn't put past Snape, but what's he after? What's the dog guarding? Harry went to bed with his head buzzing with all the same question. Neville was snoring loudly, but Harry couldn't sleep. He tried to empty his mind. He needed to sleep. He had to. He had his first Quidditch match in a few hours, but the expression on Snape's face when Harry had seen his leg wasn't easy to forget. The next morning dawned, very bright and cold. The great hall was full of delicious smell of fried sausages and the cheerful chatter of everyone looking forward to a good Quidditch match. You gotta eat some breakfast. I don't want to. A bit of toast, wheeled Hermione. I'm not hungry. Harry felt terrible. In an hour's time, he'd be walking onto the field. Harry, you need your strength, said Seamus Finnegan. Seekers are always the ones who get clobbered by every team. Thanks, Seamus, said Harry, watching Seamus pile up ketchup on his sausages. By 11 o'clock, the whole school seemed to be out on the stands around the Quidditch pitch. Many students had binoculars. The seats might be raised high in the air, but it was still difficult to see what was going on. Ron and Hermione joined Neville, Seamus, and Dean in the West Ham fan up in the top row. As a surprise for Harry, they had painted a large banner on the sheets of the scabbards had ruined. It said Potter for President, and Dean, who was good at drawing, had done a large Gryffindor lion underneath. Then Hermione had performed a tricky little charm that the paint flashed different colors. Meanwhile, in the locker room, Harry and the rest of the team were changing into their scarlet Quidditch robes. Slytherin would be playing in green. Wood cleared his throat for silence. Okay, men and women, said Chaser Angelina Johnson. And women, Wood agreed. That is. The big one, said Fred Weasley. The one we've been waiting for, said George. We know Oliver's speech by heart, Fred told Harry. We were the same team last year. Shut up, you two. This is the best team Gryffindor's had in years. We're gonna win. I know it. He glared at them all as to say, or else. Right, it's time. Good luck, all of you. Harry followed Fred and George out of the locker room, and hoping his knees wouldn't give way, walked onto the field full of cheers. Madame Hooch was refereeing. She stood in the middle of the field, waiting for the two's team. Her broom was on hand. Now, I want a nice fair game, all of you. Once we were all gathered around her, Harry noticed that she seemed to be speaking particularly to the Slytherin captain, Marcus Flint, a sixth year. Harry thought Flint looked like he had some blood in him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the Flutter banner high, flashing Potter for President over the crowd. His heart skipped. He felt brave. Mount your brooms, please. Harry clambered onto his Nimbus 2000. Madame Hooch gave a loud blast of her whistle. 15 brooms rose up. High into the air they were off. And the quaffle is taken immediately by Angela Johnson of Gryffindor. And an excellent chaser that girl is. And rather attractive, too. Jordan! Sorry, Professor. The Weasley twins' friends, Lee Jordan, was doing the commentary for the match, closely watched by Professor McGonagall. She's really belting along up there. A neat pass to Alicia Spinnet. A good find for Oliver's. Last year, only receive. Back to Johnson, and no, the Slytherins have taken the quaffle. Slytherin captain Marcus Flint gains the quaffle, and off he goes. Flint flying like an eagle up there. He's going to No! Stopped by an excellent move by Gryffindor keeper Wood. And Gryffindors take the quaffle. That's Chaser, Katie Bell of Gryffindor there. Nice dive around Flint. Off the field, and ouch! That must have hurt. Hit in the back of the head by a bludger. Quaffle taken by the Slytherins. That's Adrian Pusey speeding off towards the goalpost. He's blocked by a second bludger, sent his way by Fred or George Weasley. Can't tell which. Nice play by the Gryffindor beater anyway. And Johnson back in possession of the quaffle to clear the field ahead, and off she goes. She's really flying, dodges a speeding bludger. The goalposts are ahead. Come on now, Angela. Keeper Belchley drives, misses. Gryffindor scores! Goal! Gryffindor cheers filled the air, with howls and moans from the Slytherins. Budge, up there, move along. Hagrid? Ron and Hermione squeezed together to give Hagrid enough space to join them. Been watching from me hut, said Hagrid, patting a large pair of binoculars around his neck. But it isn't the same being in a crowd. No sign of the snitch yet, eh? Nope, said Ron. Harry hasn't had much to do yet. Gotta keep out of trouble, though, something, said Hagrid, raising his binoculars and peering skyward at the speck that was Harry. Way up above him, Harry was gliding over the game, squinting about for a sign of the snitch. This was part of his and Wood's game plan. Keep out of the way until you catch sight of the snitch, Wood said. We don't want you attacked before we have to. When Angelina had scored, Harry had done a couple of loop-de-loops to let off the feelings. Now he was back to staring for the snitch. Once he caught sight of a gold flash, but it was just a reflection from one of the Weasley's wristbands. And once the bludger decided to come pelting his way, more like a cannon than anything. But Harry dodged it, and Fred Weasley came chasing after it. All right there, Harry, he had time to yell as he beat the bludger furiously towards Marcus Flint. Slytherin in possession, Lee Jordan was saying. Chaser Pussy ducks 2 bludgers. 2 Weasleys. The chaser bells, the speeds, the towards the... Wait a moment. Was that the snitch? A murmur ran through the crowd as Adrian Pussy dropped to the quaffle, too busy looking over his shoulder at the flash of gold that passed his left ear. Harry saw it. In a great rush of excitement, he dived downward after the streak of gold. Slytherin sneaker Terrence Hedges had seen it too. Neck and neck, they hurtled towards the snitch. All the chasers seemed to have forgotten what they were supposed to be doing as they hung in midair to watch. Harry was faster than Higgs. He could see the little round ball, wings fluttering, darting up ahead. He put an extra spurt out ahead. Wham! A roar of rage echoed from the Gryffindors below. Marcus Flint had blocked Harry on purpose, and Harry's broom spun off course, Harry holding on for dear life. Foul! Called the Gryffindors. Madam Hooch spoke angrily to Flint and then ordered a free shot at goalpost for Gryffindor. But in all the confusion, of course, the golden snitch had disappeared from sight. Down in the stands, Demas Ton was yelling, "Send him off! Red card!" "What are you talking about, Dean?" said Ron. "Red card," said Dean furiously. "In soccer you get shown a red card and you're out of the game." "This isn't soccer, Dean," Ron reminded. Hagrid, however, was on Dean's side. They ought to change the rules. Flint could have knocked Harry out of the air. Lee Jordan was finding it difficult not to take sides. So, after the obvious but disgusting bit of cheating, "Jordan!" growled Professor McGonagall. "I mean the open and revolting foul. Jordan, I'm warning you." All right. Flint nearly kills the Gryffindor Seeker, which could happen to anyone. I'm pretty sure, so a penalty to Gryffindor taken by Spinat, who puts it away. No trouble. We continue to play. Gryffindor still in possession. It was as Harry dodged another bludger, which went spinning dangerously past his head, that it happened. His broom gave a sudden, frightening lurch. For a split second, he thought he was going to fall. He gripped the broom tightly with both hands and knees. He never felt anything like that. It happened again. It was as though the broom was trying to buck him off. But Nimbus 2000s did not suddenly decide to buck off the riders. Harry tried to turn back towards the Gryffindor goalpost, but he had half a mind to ask Wood to call time out. And then he realized that his broom was completely out of control. He couldn't turn it. He couldn't direct it at all. It was zigzagging through the air and every now and then making violent swishing movements that almost unseated him. Lee was still commenting. "Slytherin possession. Flint with the quaffle. Passes Bennett. Hit hard in the face by a bludger. Hope it broke his nose. Only joking, Professor. Slytherin score." Oh no. The Slytherins were cheering. No one seemed to have noticed Harry's broom was acting strangely. It was carrying him slowly higher away from the game, jerking and twitching as it went. "To know what Harry thinks he's doing," Hagrid mumbled. He stared through his binoculars. "If it didn't know better, I'd say he lost control of his broom. But he can't have." People were suddenly pointing up as Harry all over the stands. His broom had started to roll over and over, with him only just managing to hang on. Then the whole crowd gasped. Harry's broom had given a sudden jerk, and Harry swung off. He was now dangling from it, hanging on with one hand. "Did something happen when Flint blocked him?" Seamus whispered. "Can't have," Hagrid said. His voice was shaking. "Can't nothing interfere with a broomstick except for powerful dark magic. No kid could do that on a Nimbus 2000. At these words, Hermione seized Hagrid's binoculars. But instead of looking up at Harry, she started looking frantically at the crowd. "What are you doing?" moaned Ron, gray-faced. "I knew it," Hermione gasped. "Snape, look!" Ron grabbed the binoculars. Snape's was in the middle of the stands opposite them. He had his eyes fixed on Harry's and was muttering nonstop under his breath. "He's doing something, jinxing the broom," said Hermione. "What should we do?" "Leave it to me." Before Ron could say another word, Hermione had disappeared. Ron turned the binoculars back on Harry. His broom was vibrating so hard that it was almost impossible for him to hang on so much longer. The crowd was on its feet, watching, terrified, as the Weasleys flew up to try to pull Harry safely onto one of their brooms. It was no good. Every time they got near him, the broom would jump higher still. They dropped lower, circled beneath him, hoping to catch him if he fell. Marcus Flint seized the quaffle and scored 5 times without anyone noticing. "Come on, Hermione," Ron muttered desperately. Hermione had fought her way across the stand where Snape stood and was now racing along the row behind him. She didn't even stop to say sorry as she knocked Professor Quirrell headfirst in the row in front. Reaching Snape, she crouched down, pulled out her wand, and whispered a few well-chosen words. Bright blue flames shot from her wand into the hem of Snape's robes. It took perhaps 30 seconds for Snape to realize that he was on fire. A sudden yelp told her that she had done her job. Scooping the fire off of him into the little jar in her pocket, she scrambled back along the row. Snape would never know what had happened. It was enough. Up in the air, Harry was suddenly able to clamber onto his broom. Neville, you can look, Ron said. Neville was sobbing into Hagrid's jackets for at least 5 minutes. Harry was speeding towards the ground when the crowd saw him clap his hands onto his mouth as though he was about to be sick. He hit the ground on all fours, coughed, and something gold fell into his hand. I've got the snitch, he shouted, waving it above his head, and the game ended in complete confusion. He didn't catch it. He nearly swallowed it, Flint was still howling 20 minutes later, but it made no difference. Harry hadn't broken any rules, and Lee Jordan was still happily shouting the results. Gryffindor had won by 170 points to 60. Harry heard none of this, though. He was being made a cup of strong tea in Hagrid's hut with Ron and Hermione. It was Snape, Ron was explaining. Hermione and I saw him. He was cursing your broomstick, muttering he wouldn't take his eyes off you. Rubbish, said Hagrid, who hadn't heard a word of what had gone next to him in the stands. Why would Snape do something like that? Harry and Ron and Hermione looked at another, wondering what to tell him. Harry decided to tell the truth. I found out something about him, he told Hagrid. He tried to get past the three-headed dog on Halloween. It bit him. We think he was trying to steal what it was guarding. Hagrid dropped the teapot. How do you know about Fluffy? Fluffy? Yeah, he's mine. Bought him off a Greek chappie I met at the pubs last year. I lent him to Dumbledore to guard the... Yes, said Harry eagerly. Now don't make me ask any more, said Hagrid gruffly. That's the secret, that's it. But Snape's trying to steal it. Rubbish, said Hagrid again. Snape's a Hogwarts teacher. He'd done nothing of the sort. So why did he just try to kill Harry, cried Hermione. The afternoon's events certainly seemed to have changed her mind about Snape. I know a jinx when I see one, Hagrid. I've read all about them. You've got to keep eye contact, and Snape wasn't blinking at all. I saw. I'm telling you you're wrong, Hagrid shot hotly. I don't know why Harry's broom was acting like that, but Snape wouldn't try to kill a student. Now listen to me, all three of you. You're meddling in things that don't concern you. It's dangerous. Forget the dog, and forget what it's guarding. That's Professor Dumbledore's and Nicholas Aha! Said Harry. So there is someone called Nicholas Flamel involved, is there? Hagrid looked furious with himself. I think that is an amazing place to end today's story. What did you think about this chapter, Madam Owl? I like that part too. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again. And we'll see you on the next time, here with Wayne Reads. Thank you for joining us for this amazing story, and we can't wait to see you again. Bye-bye!